Hi and welcome to The Light Leaders, a podcast for light workers who want more money, power and impact. I'm your host, Alex E. Lember. I believe that we are currently in the middle of a global awakening of humanity and that leveraging entrepreneurship is the fastest way to raise the consciousness of our planet. So in this podcast, I interview light workers and conscious entrepreneurs who follow their soul mission and have built a business around it. I call them light leaders, and this is the new paradigm. You will hear their stories and, more importantly, receive tools, tips, and strategies on how you can also impact more people and grow your business while following your soul mission. If you hear little nuggets you love and you'd like to share, screenshot this episode and share on your Instagram stories. Make sure to tag us at the Light Leaders Podcast and we will repost. Hey, before we jump into that interview, there is a phone I really want to talk to you about. This one, it's called the Clear phone. So it's not run by Google or by Apple. It's a different operating system. It's a really good smartphone and I'm really excited about it because if you have educated yourself on what happens to your data when you use Apple and Google, well, often they will use your data and sell it to advertiser and use so much of it. So this is a phone that's encrypted and decentralized and it's run on the blockchain. I'm super passionate about it. It's also a really good smartphone. They ship almost everywhere in the world. So if you're interested, go to thelightleaders.org/clearphone, clear like it's clear, phone, and you'll find more information there. You can also become, like me, a brand ambassador. I'm so passionate about it. So yeah, see you there and enjoy this episode. Hi, and welcome to this new episode. I wanted to do an exceptional disclaimer for this episode because I invited Joel in the first place because he has millions of views and listens on his podcast and on his website, and he's such a successful person. And I thought we would talk more about money mindset, overcoming procrastination, how to use social media. But actually now he's mainly passionate about talking about God and also how this relationship helps him in his life, but also helps his business and why it's important, according to him, to talk about that. And so I definitely wanted to give him a voice to share about what he was excited about. The reason for this disclaimer is that it's a longer episode than usual, an hour, and we talked mainly about God and spirituality. So I wanted you to know and be aware that this is what the podcast is about before you make the decision to listen to it, because I am very respectful of your time. Now, that being said, I really encourage you to listen to it and always feel free to send me feedback. Much love. Today, I'm with Joel Brown. Joel has achieved over 342 million views worldwide with addictedtosuccess.com, the #1 motivation website. He was offered multiple $1 million offers for his website and turned them all down to continue to grow his company. Joel has more than 2.9 million social media followers. He has achieved over 4.2 million plays and downloads on his Addicted to Success podcast and has interviewed people such as Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Gary Vee, Simon Sinek, Robin Sharma, and many more. He's the founder of Influential Coach, a certification program for coaches, and has sold over 10,000 copies of his self-published book, The Formula, The Secret Ingredient of Online Success. One of his latest projects is a podcast called The Unknown God with Marcos Torres, a podcast about God for people who don't like church. Welcome to the show, Joel.
Yay. Hey, man. Thanks for edifying me. I appreciate that.
So, Joel, let's get straight into it. What are you grateful for today?
Oh, what am I not grateful for? There's so many things. I'm grateful for the fact that I live here in Ebarle. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm not laying in a hospital bed right now. I know there's a lot of people in this world that are struggling with things that are going on. I'm grateful for the fact that I have been gifted the ability to create, and to to not sit on my hands, to get up and take action and to get out there in the world. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my connection with God. That's a big one. That's where everything comes from. Yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for sure.
Beautiful. And I'm grateful for you being in this chair.
Dude, I'm grateful for this too. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Yeah.
To give a bit of context to the listener, I like to start directly asking, what's your greater why? What is what drives you really in the world? And also, how is your business helping you bring that vision into manifestation?
Yeah. Well, the business is a vehicle. I remember when I crafted a 10-year vision for success 12 years ago. And by the way, you push the vision out each year. As you achieve 1 year, you push it out more. So you've always got a 10-year vision. But I remember focusing on building a community, building a movement, which came to be Addicted to Success. And obviously we've impacted millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people around the world. But it's not necessarily the business that's the focus. It's the vehicle for more impact. See, I believe that people have greatness in them. So many people are either playing small, they're being programmed through society to think that they're less than, to think that there's just other people out there that are capable and there's this hierarchy in the world. And this is what society has essentially bestowed upon us as I call it a hallucination. I believe that everybody has the ability to be great, amazing at that. And I love supporting people in exploring that greatness and bringing it out of themselves, revealing the parts of them, the aspects of them that they don't know are dormant. And I just think if everybody really stepped up in this world and, moved through the mess, did the healing, did the forgiveness worked through the traumas, they'd be able to actually come back to themselves and realize there's so much here they get to work with. In the process, working with God, co-creating with God, and seeing what their potential is really like, that there fascinates me. And that's what I'm about, impacting the lives and the hearts of millions. Yeah.
And then how did you choose to bring that vision into the world?
Well, it started with Addicted to Success, which is right now it's the #1 self-development motivation-based website. And it started out with articles, then it turned into interviews, then it turned into online programs, and then it turned into live events. We've been running events around the world for quite a few years now. And really, I think there's a lot of information out there. We're in the information age. We're moving more into this spiritual age right now. And I think it's time where, we've realized we've got a lot of information. You don't have to go too far to see there's podcasts out there. There's articles everywhere. There's billions and billions of articles. You've already got the answers. They're there. But I think what we want is we don't just want self-development. We want to transcend self-actualization, to go deeper and to go deeper into, wait a minute, why am I here? What can I do? That's your potential piece. Where am I from? What's my source, right? And where am I going with this? What's the journey? What happens when I die, right? These questions plague the minds of even the most intellectual people on this planet. The everyday, moms and dads and businessmen standing in an ivory tower overlooking New York City, even Nobel Peace Prize winners. This is something that rocks the world of so many people. And so I love exploring those aspects. I like to go beyond self-development and go into spiritual development. That's where it's at.
I'm super interested to have you here because you've achieved so much success and you've been a lot into personal development. Yeah. Sometimes you find, okay, there's something beyond. There's a quote I like from Tony Robbins. He talks about the science of success and the art of fulfillment. And that if you're super successful, but you're not fulfilled, at the end of the day, that's the ultimate failure. Yeah. And I find it really interesting to have someone like you, we saw in the introduction, that has all these achievements and that talks also a lot about that more spiritual part. So has it been something always with you, or were you really focused more on success, let's say in the physical realm, and more on the business level, and then you switched?
Yeah, my first run at achieving success. I mean, I was 7 years old, man. I've been starting and stopping businesses and moving into other places to try something else out for a very long time. For 26 years. I wrote about it on my Instagram last night, actually. I've launched 9 businesses. And there's some like other little like hobbies that probably weren't quite businesses in there too. If you really added it up, it'd be like almost 14 or 15. The ones that really popped were the ones that were of purpose, that were about impact. The others were, money is my motivation, curiosity, kind of testing, trying, experimenting plays, which I think that we all get to go through. I think in the beginning, you're trying to stay afloat. It's like, how do I make enough money to leave my dead-end job? How do I get out of this rat race, this hamster wheel of life? And then you move to a place of going, wait a minute, cool. I don't need to work a day job. I'm now self-employed. Then when you get to that self-employed bracket, you realize my business will no longer bring in more money if I stop. So you're not really a business owner yet. You're self-employed. And then when you get to a place of, business owner, it's different because you have a team around you. You build a community, you have a movement, you got customers, you're offering a service. It's getting out there in the marketplace. That's what I like. I like seeing people move from self-employed to business owner to really see like, hey, this is what it's about. This is what it means to be in the game. And we can do that in all shapes and forms. Some people like starting a non-for-profit. Some people like creating online businesses. Some people like going and, putting the money in on the trades. I know we were talking about that before, trading crypto and all that. There's a lot of new things on the rise. And I think that within yourself, you're listening to this or watching this right now, within yourself where you're playing small. Where you're comparing yourself to others. Where you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough. Where you're telling yourself that if I step in and I fail, that's going to be a mistake. And I've made mistakes mean that that's a bad thing. And I love breaking those walls down within people by supporting them, by showing them, hey, that what you've been telling yourself is a lie. What makes somebody else go out there and achieve success? Bring in a good return, expand a team from 1 to 100 or more. What makes somebody go out there and donate and contribute to millions of people in third world countries? They've found that the greatness that they've always wanted is on the other side of their own self. They're their own worst obstacle. And that was my journey, was just like really learning to get the things to realize that wasn't actually the route that we take, but I needed to do that because in that process, it revealed to me where I was showing up short because I felt like I wasn't good enough. Once I worked through that, I realized I don't need this to measure me anymore because it was reflecting in relationships I'd have, romantic relationships. I'd always be like paying for things and taking, girls on, expensive trips and going to the most expensive restaurants to make the best impression and all that, and wondering why it wasn't working out. And I realized it's because I always put that value on what I did and what I have, because I was getting pats on the back from everybody and, you're awesome along the way based off that, only to find that it wasn't about that. It's about who I was and who I am. So that was a sobering journey for me for the first 5 or 6 years of really skyrocketing my success. And then my mom said something to me one day. I remember telling her, Mom, we had, Tony Robbins on the podcast, and I was featured in a film with Tony Robbins and the Dalai Lama and Richard Branson and all these things I'd written down in my vision that I was going to work on documentary films, and I was going to be featured with these legends in the space. And I did all of it, man. I achieved literally 90% of my vision within the first 6 years. I conquered the 10-year vision early, and then I kept stepping into a bigger and grander one. And I was telling her all these things, and my mom, being who she is, she's amazing. She's listening and she goes, Joe, all those things are great. But if there's going to be anything that you let anybody you remember you by, let them remember you for your love. And I was just like, damn. And I was like, I don't know how to love. I don't know. I haven't learned that. I guess, I give it a shot, but I hadn't learned to love myself. And so I went through that process only to find that once I finally worked through the processing of learning to come into my alignment, right, to get clear on my vision, to fill my own cup and not expect other people to fill the void and to try and get my other needs met from everybody else on the external, I realized that I already had it all along, and that when I find the love in my creator, I don't need to impress anybody else. I'm already loved by my creator, and we can go deep together. We can co-create. And bro, my whole world expanded. Like I literally started having really big business opportunities coming my way, like temptation left, right, and center, $1 million opportunities, 6-figure opportunities. And I was like, no, because I was in full alignment with it. And I didn't want my energy attached to any of these things that were out of the alignment, because I trust in God. I trust that God will provide. And I know that because when I try to do it by myself, I always thought that this thing that I was always trying to go for myself was the thing that was going to fill me up, only to find on the other side of it that wasn't what I needed for my soul. Maybe it appealed to the vision, to the eyes, to the sight. And I was seeing through my eyes, but I wasn't seeing through my soul. And that was a difference. And now the decisions that I make are very different to what I used to make. They're way more fulfilling. My decisions are driven, and so are yours and anybody that's listening here. Your decisions are driven by your values and your beliefs. What you value most, hold in your heart, what you believe to be true about yourself, and what you believe you're not as well has a big impact. And then the identity piece, man, the beliefs and the habits, how I kept showing up and what I believe about myself, my self-concept starts to shape and take form. And whenever I tried to just compare myself to what was happening in the world, I realized I was worshiping man. I was worshiping other beings. So that's my upper limit. That's my ceiling.
You feel at some point with addicted to success, even with all the success you've had, it was kind of another rat race in a way?
Yeah, well, it's evolved over time. Yeah. And anyone that's listening, I want you to think about this. Give yourself the grace, right? Because sometimes people think they've got to get it right at the start, or they're waiting to get it right until they can start, which that's failure in itself, right? I started, that's where I was at. I owned where I was at the time, and I was very much about, being on a relentless pursuit for your dreams and never settling, and go, hustle, grind. I still have an element of me that believe that operates in that sense. It's just more harmonized now. But then when I was younger, 21 years old. Yeah, 21-year-old, going on 22. That was my mindset, until I matured and had that mature success, had the millions of dollars, sitting in 5-star luxury resorts, private planes, Lambos and Rolls Royces, like all the fancy attention, movie sets, red carpet events, all those things, man. And then it's like once you experience that and you come to that point, like right after it, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, that thing's no longer what I get to dance in anymore. I've got to go back to the drawing board or the next thing. And you realize that if you don't have a greater vision that's God-given, that's in that alignment for more on a deeper sense and in more of a spiritual sense, this like cosmic calling, then it's never going to shadow the last vision that you had. You always kind of stay stuck in that game, and you're trying to find your answers there, but it's not there.
And do you feel that you still had to kind of win at that game first to then, because it's also easier sometimes to be on a spiritual aligned path when we have, let's say, we're less in the survival mode, or where we've seen already, experience ourselves that it didn't bring ultimate fulfillment. My
journey was, at 13 years old, I grew up Christian, right? And I never had church hurt. I actually had a really great experience of my community within Christianity. It was great community. No judgment, actually, no judgment. It was great. But I got to 13 years old and I was like, I don't like this. I want to go play with the boys and hang out with the girls and, party and do whatever I want to do and, live the high school life. I had this massive success from 13 to 18. I had got into a radio station, worked my way up, had a primetime radio show at 18 years old, DJ'd, playing at big clubs, got into the music industry, managing songwriters and producers, signed a subsidiary deal under Atlantic Records, worked with people like Usher, who else? Ludacris, Lil Wayne, A$AP Rocky, work with, Evanescence piano players and all the top like writers and having the red carpet events. And one day I woke up and I was like, this isn't for me anymore. I had this knot in my stomach and this looping line in my head that you're not supposed to be here. And I call it the whispers of wisdom from God. It's like, it's time to move to that next chapter, Joel. Move to that next chapter. That was there for like almost 3 months. And that knot got tighter and tighter. It was just like a signal, like, let's go, next chapter. And I remember telling my producers and songwriters, and I remember telling my family, and I remember telling my friends, they all thought I was crazy. They're like, what do you mean you're going to throw in the towel? This is like your passion. You've been working to it. I'm like, I'm done here. I'm done. There's something else. And I had to trust my gut and trust God's calling. And I went back to Perth and hit this like next chapter with just full trust that something's going to be here and I'll find it. And little did I know that along the way, as I was finding myself being inspired by people like Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Grant Cardone and people of that nature, Brené Brown, I remember just going, this here feels like this will light my soul. And I paid attention to it and I kept showing up in it until I realized, wait a minute, I'm becoming part of this and this is what I want. And you almost like become part of it to grow in it, and then you come away from it and go, I don't need it. I enjoy it, but there's more now that I get to be a part of. I like to be a part of the greater goings on in life, but I also don't like to get lost in the world because I know what it's like to be lost. That's when you're living this life where you think you're conscious, but you don't use reasoning, or you use reasoning, but without this conscientiousness to it. So like, where's your judgment gone then? If you're just like selling your soul, or you're stuck to something without integrating and being a part of what's going on in life. And it's this dance between the two. That's where your judgment comes from. And, God calls us to be the salt of the earth. Like, we're not supposed to be separate from and just stay, but we get to mix in. Like, when you add a bit of salt to the food, it gives it that flavor. You get to be integrated with it as well and not be sold in the process, So yeah, man, it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. I wouldn't say that I'm there yet. So the question is like, where's there? Because I ask my clients all the time. And they're like, I just need to get there. I go, what's there?
I was going to ask you, what's your definition of success?
Definition of success is to live in my God-given potential as often as possible, whatever that may be, and it evolves. Your soul is on this continuing forward journey. It wants to keep growing and progressing in life. Those that are depressed, often, I don't want to say every single person is depressed because there's many factors. Often what I do find is a lot of people that are depressed have disorder in their life. They don't have order, so they don't have like a functioning structure. But their soul wants to keep going forward. It wants to feel like there's growth. It wants to feel like it's going to a destination that has this more, like you said before, fulfillment. I don't think happiness is the goal. I think that's a pipe dream. I think when people was like happy, it's like, well, what happens if you experience a family member that passes away? Your goal's gone, right? But if I say fulfillment, maybe fulfillment is in the experience that if my family member passes away, that I get to see that as an opportunity to be there more for my family that needs support, to be the person that gets to cry, to be the person that gets to learn what it's like to have the full experience of being a human, to live in my multi-dimensions of the human and soul experience. That's fulfillment to me. It doesn't always have to be happy, sunshine and rainbows. So I'm very realistic about that.
You find that as you've been in personal development quite deep, it's something sometimes in personal development that's a little bit fake in a way, to be too positive or to never...
There's a little bit of that.
Not acknowledge negative emotions.
Yeah, I don't want to generalize because I think people are, for the most part, are giving it a pretty good shot and they're trying to be pretty reasonable with it. There are definitely people online right now, and I see what's happening in the space. I'm not spending a lot of time there. I'm kind of more with my tribe. I love building with my own people, my tribe, my community, nurturing and supporting and raising up leaders. But what I do see online is I do see a lot of content creators in the space that are posting things that are popular. And they're posting it because they know it's going to get lots of likes, it's going to get lots of attention, but it's safe. It's so safe, man. And the world doesn't need safe. The world's looking for real. It wants raw. It wants authentic. We've had enough of popular. And you can see it. You see this saturation in the space of influencer. I'm not a big fan of influencer. I think it's a cultural, social media cultural trend that's in the scape right now. And I think that it's almost like diluting what it means to be a leader, because, like I'm not a leader because I want free lattes at a cafe, like I'm not a leader because I want to plug other people's products. I'm a leader because I believe that there's greatness within people. And because I've been able to experience a transformation and breakthrough of that, it would be selfish of me to hold it to myself. So I get to serve. And I know there's a lot of other coaches in the space that believe this too, to feel this way. And I just think like, this is your opportunity. If you feel that, create courageously. That's art. Don't be afraid to express yourself. Like at the start, you're like, man, let's do, some priming, and breathe it in. It's like, that's you expressing yourself and not holding back and apologizing. You're being unapologetic, and it's awesome, man. I think that's amazing. I commend that. And there are a lot of people out there that are kind of just, they're like going with the motion of what seems to be praised. And I look at someone like Jesus, man, he was a rebel. He was a gangster of all gangsters, because he stood in front of the most religious people in that time and told them that their words and how they were like whitewashed tombs. You know what that means? Whitewashed tombs means washed and looking good on the outside, but dead on the inside. He called them out. He called them forward, and he was hung on a cross for it, in front of the world, man. And you see over 2 billion people worship him today. He recruited some of the most unlikely people. He had, his disciples were fishermen and tax collectors and physicians. It's like
Mary Magdalene.
Man, well, Mary. I mean, there's some books out there that talk about Mary and Jesus being in a relationship. Not true. There's nothing in the scriptures that supports that. Someone made this up. I think sometimes people warp belief systems in a way that they'd like it to be comfortable for them. I think that the thing that I like about the scriptures, and I wasn't at first going like, oh, the scriptures are the place to go. I looked at Jesus first and I saw his walk, and no one's been able to refute the fact that he walked in his perfection and was a powerful example. A lot of religious perspectives would say that you've got to work your way up a mountain to appease God, to reach God. Jesus teaches a very different narrative. He says he comes down the mountain to meet with us, to walk with us, to be the example, to co-create with us. And he's holding us to that standard. There's nothing that he did that was under the table. There was nothing that he did that was out of shame. He was there fully who he was. And I think that you look at any other leader in history, no one touches that. Not a damn person ever has ever touched it. And so I look there, and when he points to the scripture as authority, I'm like, man, there's got to be some things in this. And even look into the scriptures, it's unapologetic too. It's like when I see people that go through crisis. I've had it with coaching clients I've worked with, and I've heard it in conversations. Something bad happens in the world. And they're like, oh, God, and they get angry about God. Like, God wouldn't do this. Why would God? And they say they don't believe in God. But then you say, well, why put it on him? The reason why we put it on him is because we identify there's an authority to his figure. Whether we like it or not, based off whatever experience or perspective we've had, we identify that he has this authority, but not in a dictatorial way, but in a way where there's a command to the way that he calls nature forth and the way that he inspires within us to be held to a higher standard. And man, if we're going to be operating in the sense of self-development, in the self-development space, everyone talks about ownership. You got to take ownership for, your triggers. I own my triggers. I like my triggers. If someone triggers me, it means that I've got work to do. When it comes to God and people get triggered, it's like, interesting. You don't want to own that. And I love that because it holds you to a higher standard. And that's where the growth is, that it overpasses and bypasses the posting things for popularity. It speaks in truth, and truth operates in a different frequency. And people, whether they like it or not, can feel it and they know it. That's what I love about it. It calls you out.
Well, I don't know how you'd feel about that. And we can talk a bit after about your definition of God, actually, because in a room, if there's 100 people, there's 100 different perception of God.
Love it, man. Love it.
And for me, being more in spiritual circles, you almost feel like God is in you and you're God. So then that's a lot of ownership that you take on that.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand, because for me, God is what people call consciousness or source or different words. What would be, and sometimes I prefer to use words like this because I feel sometimes God creates a separation between God and the person, but I'm interested in your definition of it.
This is good, man. I like this. So, okay, when we can break this down, and as you're listening to this, I love these conversations. It gets real tough for some people to hear it. Mm-hmm. And it gets really tough for people to wrap their heads around it if they've just always stayed in one perspective. So I challenge you today to just consider, right? That's it. I'm not saying, hey, I'm preaching the word and you got to, I'm not about that, man. I sit with Satanists. I sit with atheists. I sit with Muslims. I sit with Hindus. I sit with Christians. Sometimes I have the most beef with Christians. Christians get really triggered by me because we go into the legalistic view of it, and I challenge them too. So I wouldn't say I identify, if there's anything I identify with, close enough would be a Christian. But even then, Christianity has been, to a degree, has been bastardized through power and control, okay, and through religious institutions. There are good people in every space. Okay, so I'm not discounting that. This is an institution-based thing when we talk religion. So let's say there's a difference. Religion, then we have relationship. Relationship is what I'm in. I have a relationship with God through Christ, right? Christ taught what relationship meant. Before that, it was an idea and a religion and like we're going off what we're reading here or what our, fathers or our mothers say. And people still do that. They adopt, they just adopt a belief. And I did initially, but then when I came into my own realization, own relationship through Christ to meet God, that was my moment of massive awakening. Okay. So I want to break down the differences. We got religion, man-made institution, mostly legalistic. This is a saying, good intentions, poor performance, right? So I think that most people have good intentions with it, but poor performance on the back end, because then what are we teaching our children? Yeah. What are we teaching each other? You're wrong if you make this decision in your life. Okay, fair enough. Maybe there's a morality challenge here. Maybe it's not moral. Maybe it actually is hurting somebody else, right? Then the way that I look at it is I don't need to sit here and prove anybody that they're wrong and I'm right. Yeah. Because if that's the case, that's righteousness, obviously. But if that's the case, it means that I don't believe in my belief enough, because I need to convince someone, and if they agree with it, it makes me believe more. I already believe. I'm good. And I'll keep learning and I'll keep believing and I'll keep asking people to challenge me. So I wanted to open that up as a context for anyone that's listening that may be like, oh, he's going to speak into this in this way and I may not like it. I want you to stay and listen. Because I think that this is like where our great work happens, is through the triggers, through the like, oh, I'm being challenged right now. And this happened to me too. What you're probably experiencing right now, same thing. So my view of God, and this is through studying. I've studied theology, studied philosophy, studied history, had a lot of mentorship with spiritual leaders. I studied a lot around a lot of different religions. Okay, that's the study of theology, and had debates. Debates with very different religious systems, and we've sat there and we've explored scriptures, and it's been really awesome to connect with people of all walks of life. When we say God is in us in a sense that we are like gods, this is called a pantheistic view of God. Okay. So if we were to have a conversation around pantheism, it's very different to a sense that I believe in the Holy Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? Separate from us, has a presence with us, walks with us, co-creates with us. Pantheism is God is in everything to a degree. Gnosticism is very similar too. And so the way it's communicated will be very different, right? Because we're coming from a different perspective. We're putting on different lenses. And this is what happens. That's why you have so many different denominations, because they're putting on different lenses to read the Bible, to read, whatever the Holy Scriptures are in whatever belief system. Every belief system has different sects to it to a degree. And then some say they're exclusive. Inclusive, that they'll have everybody, come into it. But it's not, because part of the nature is there are aspects of it that's exclusive. Okay. And then you have like, even within Hinduism, it's the reincarnation and karma. They're two exclusive elements of beliefs within that system. So it's not, in a sense, all inclusive. They have exclusive parts of them. And this is the saying essentially that a lot of people say there's all paths to God, there's all walks to it. Now, not every belief system is the same. They have superficial similarities, right? Like very superficial similarities, but fundamental differences when you look at them and go deep. That's what I studied, and more of that was revealed to me as I went deeper. My thing was very much untying, going through the murkiness of the water of religion and really bringing it out to try and bring as much purity in play. Someone like Jesus, who I mentioned before, when he was walking earth, the disciples referred to what he taught as the way. And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, right? Bold claim. No one's ever said that. That's a very bold claim. You can't even mince those words. It's there. Now, what those that follow Jesus, what they were following was the way. Roman order, Roman Catholicism essentially brought it into play and said, this is Christianity, right? They referred to them as little Christians, those that follow Jesus. So from the early church days, a lot of it started to become diluted and broken off, and everyone had their own opinions, right? What happened is somewhere along the line, man has said, this is what we think it is, and this is the character of God, and this is the big distortion.
Okay.
God is a dictator. God is so far away from us that we don't get to co-create with him, that we've just got to follow his commands.
To give you a bit of context, though, I think most of the listeners of the Light Leaders would be more people who feel that personal connection and not that much a separation of that dictator.
Good.
God.
Good. So this is what it is that God is a God of love, right? He cares about you and me. Yeah. He is here for forgiveness, right? He's here to co-create with us, and he's waiting for you to open the door, and the way that we look at even salvation, the big question is what happens when you die, and this is something that a lot of people don't really get to until they're on their deathbed or they reach an older age and they start kind of maturing within the questions they're even asking themselves, because they're not so much about all the things they can get in the world. They now start going, wait a minute, what is the purpose of life and where am I going with this?
Is that an exercise you do a lot, thinking about your death?
Dude, I've done it for a very long time, ever since I was little, and it's just like connecting the dots and putting the pieces together. I'm not saying I have it all right, but I have what would be closer to what I feel within myself as I study the narrative of what's unfolding. Right now, whether we like it or not, we're living in his story. History, his story. We're a part of it right now. It's unfolding, right?
What's your view on what's happening right now in the world? Well,
here's what it is, man. We can't deny it. We live in a world of dark and light, good and evil. And Paul, one of the apostles, he says that we're not battling with flesh and blood. It's a battle of principalities and powers that's at play. So in a spiritual aspect, there's definitely a darkness. I've spoken to people of all different walks of life and religions, and they've experienced it in their spaces too. Spirits being called in, darkness brought in, up in the environment. They've experienced it as much as there's light as well. And so ultimately, we as beings here, it's funny because we're getting like real cosmic in this conversation. We as beings here go through a struggle within our soul of this dance between, am I doing what's right? Am I a good human? Is that enough to save my soul here? And the thing that God tells us is that's not enough, that it can't be all the weight that's on us. Human beings aren't designed to be deities. It's way too much pressure on ourselves. We're not meant to be gods. The Egyptians tried that. They crumbled, right? Which is humanism. And so there's got to be a plan in place. There's got to be something in place, which is the remedy. And that's what Christ came to do, is to be that remedy with us to reclaim the kingdom.
And to ground it back also into how we can help that shift also in the world. And so you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you're very connected to God in that way. Do you find that entrepreneurship or even business can be one of the most powerful ways to bring a vision of the world where you have more good?
I mean, it'd be general for me to say yes, because it depends on what you're doing. I know entrepreneurs that are full-blown selfish, that are just about themselves, And they're in their journey, whatever. That's their journey. I've experienced people that have been very giving and very open and very much of service and very much in community and very much of doing their best. You know, I think that God knows what's on our heart. He weighs. You know, we're all weighed on the scales of time. We're all having our experience here on earth. This here is just an interlude, I truly believe. And so the question is, like, what are you doing with your money? Because some people can say, you know, I got a bunch of money. But my question is, it's not about how much you make. It's how did you make your money that matters more.
And I'm asking you also because it's interesting to have the combination of both. And I think from your perspective, you probably talk with Addicted to Success more to people who probably already have money or are quite successful in the material world, and to tell them a bit, okay, there's more than this. Yeah. But also with the audience of the Light Leaders, there are a lot of people who are more actually coming from a spiritual path where they would find fulfillment from within. But at some point feel like, okay, I could be of a greater service in the world. And that could be through creating a podcast, through like worldly creations or creating a business. So do you feel like the two go well together? Or are you at the moment more going away a bit from entrepreneurship as on your road to spirituality?
I think entrepreneurship is just naturally where my skill set lies, and I've integrated quite a bit of it into play. Not to say that I've maxed it all. There's always more to learn, but I've integrated it in a way where I know how to build business systems. I know how to make sales. I know how to market and brand. I know how to, like, a good idea of how to play.
It's like, that's my skills. How can I put them in alignment?
Yeah, I'm not making it the be all and end all. You know, like, my relationship with God is the most important, and for me to be able to reveal to others through conversations, through connecting, is that, like, this is going to be the most important thing in your life. It may not feel like it now, but it will eventually. And I think that some people within themselves could have much more of a fulfilling journey knowing that they're walking with God in creation. And it's like this thing that when you understand God's true character of love more, you just want to abide and be in his love more. And I think that some people will, like, sacrifice that connection with God in that, and they'll just go, I just need to be all business. And the truth is that, like, there won't be that harmony or that peace in your life when you do that. I know it. I can say it because I know it to be true. I felt it myself, to the point where I remember trying to find my way through all these different systems and following all these different things. I understood concepts of God. I was like, that's a concept. Yeah. That's a tradition I could do to get to that. That's a ritual I could do to get this appeased. But to be in relationship with God through Christ, man, the first time ever in my life, I came to realize that he is a living being that loves and cares about us, that has a plan for our salvation, for our soul, and has a promise to fulfill within us. And dude, like, when I met that, I stopped having to search in all these different mixed bags of all these different systems and spaces. And I stopped and stood tall in that. And all I've done ever since then is just grown in that love and grown in that direction in my life. And dude, everything became easy. Business became easy. Making money became easy. Building community became easy. Learning to love others and connecting with others, all those things became so much easier. And it's tough for me to put that in words, the feeling that comes with that, because there's nothing on this planet that's ever been able to do that for me. You know, there's no self-development course, or there's no, like, as much money as I can make or build a business to be able to feel that, bro.
And was that already the case, let's say 5 years ago?
No, because I wasn't in my commitment with God.
Because you were already very successful without that.
Already successful, man. I've had all those things. I've had $1 million acquisition offers.
But do you feel that connection also made you even more successful?
More successful. But it's funny because it's always the thing that we think that we don't. It's like, oh, no, that's not going to be that fulfilling. I need the other thing. And the more you chase all the other things and realize every time you achieve it, which is my story and probably a lot of people listening, there's this emptiness at the end of it. There's this saying that my good friend Marcos, who's on the Unknown God podcast with me, we put it out. It's on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, the Unknown God podcast. He says it's kind of like that movie, the Amityville Horror, If you've ever seen that.
Which one?
The Amityville horror
No.
movie, right? It's like they have this dream to buy this mansion. They really want to find this incredible mansion and do it up. And they find their dream house. And they go in and they put all this work into it. And they've wanted it their whole life. And they've got all the different rooms. And then slowly but surely over the time of the movie, as it unfolds, the rooms are haunted. And it ends up being like the worst place they ever want to be in. This is how so many of us are living our life. Yeah. We're trying to chase all the things and go to all the things, and we get all the accolades and we think the next thing is a pinnacle for this and that. And then we find as time goes on later in our life, these hauntings come up. The ghosts don't go away. Like the traumas are there, the running from God, the running from the truth, the running from purpose of why we're truly here starts to catch up with us. And we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? I was just blessed enough to find that within myself early. And I've had many people that have come to me that have said, Joel, there's something about what you're up to. There's something I'm seeing. I want more of that.
A certain frequency, a vibration.
They're
energy.
seeing it and feeling it, bro. And it's, like I said, man, the truth operates on a different frequency. I'm not saying this to take it for myself. You can take me out of the equation. Like, Christ being the truth, God being the truth in that, and people feeling what that is. Once you get rid of the distortions, the religion, the institution, and peel it all the way back to the character of Christ to understand the walk and understand the way and look closely at it. And if you believe God to be true, call upon God. God, reveal to me the truth. He listens, he hears.
And so you talked about God being love, and there's always a very beautiful connection spiritually, but I think we're aligned in wanting also to bring into manifestation in this physical world a world that is more driven by the values of love. Yeah. How do you think light leaders, because that's also the angle I'm interested in my podcast, how can a listener who feels, okay, I want to bring more love in the world, what would be your advice for them to help actually create that here in that plane?
Yeah. Man, I think it's a beautiful virtue. And I think that if we explored both sides of the coin, the first would be, I cheer anybody on that's in the practice of that. This is my journey too. This is my practice. And I think the more that you humble yourself, and God says this, like those that try and exalt themselves will be debased, and those that humble themselves will be exalted, And it's funny because it's like an inverted world that we live in a sense that if I humble myself, and that doesn't mean not playing in your potential.
I was going to say, can you specify? Because you talk also about not playing small.
Well, this is what it means. Not trying to be a god of gods, right? Like, let that be him. Like I said, trying to be a deity, too much pressure, bro. Give that to God, And this is the thing I see happening more and more in the world that we're in, is that there's this like weird, like distorted, I don't know if you're noticing it too, man, where it's like people are coming across as they're like light and they're all giving. But on the other side, as you get to know them more, you're like, wait a minute, there's a lot of narcissism and egotistical behavior here. Yeah, spiritual ego. It happens in every space. It's not just in the new age space or the, whatever, the self-development space or business space. But like I said, it's this dance of going, I'm humble before God, right? And that doesn't mean because I think he's a dictator. It's because I recognize in him the creation that's come from him of love. We live in a world of destruction. We do. Whether we like to hear that or not, humans don't know how to build empires without tyranny. Like a lot of us are living in, 2021 right now. Some of you that are listening right now, maybe you've been on this earth for 30 years or 40 years, right? If you open the history books and look back, like every 80 years, massive wars, massive destructions, right? The 21st century is the bloodiest century of all other centuries combined. When you weigh it up and look at it, and obviously our populations are bigger, but when you pair it up, we have had more wars and deaths than any other century combined. That's huge. We're in a time where this is a big concern. And I love that people are raising up and going, we need to come from love and we need unity. I love it. I really do love it, man. I think it's awesome.
And people in their power also, as you said, unapologetic about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I do also see is I see that if you were to see the narrative, and this is the part here where I say, just like open up this up to consideration, that there was a disagreement in God, in heaven, a war of words with God. and Lucifer, and there was the fall. Lucifer wanted to go against God and wanted to become like God. You see the difference? See the similarities here? Like people wanting to become like gods, trying to raise themselves up, egotism, narcissism, wars. Then coming into this earth as we are, in the creation that we are here on this earth, that sin, which is what we call, like when you study it deeply, it means violation of purpose. It's altering the design of God's law, comes out of it and alters the planet. Jesus is the remedy. He comes through to teach us what truth, love, and liberty is. We come into alignment with that. What that means is that now we have an example of the practice of truth, love, and liberty to come into this space. And so we live in a world where we want to be able to come from truth, love, and liberty. But if we don't have the example of what that is in its purest form, we may learn from some people that can express that at times. But if we're learning and we're worshiping man and using just man as an example, then that's the most that we can go. So I really do believe that when we come into purity, not through religion, but through relationship in Christ, who's teaching us truth, love, and liberty, that's how we bring ourselves back into this, what we call like heaven on earth.
And so you talked about Satan or Lucifer is going against God in a way.
Yeah.
So to go back to the definition of God, because for example, my definition of God includes everything. So there's no duality. But in yours, there is a duality.
There's duality, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because, this is the thing. It's like, if I just believe the universe creates everything, I believe the universe is powerful. There's definitely strings through time in the universe, and there's resonance and there's frequency for sure. That doesn't deny God. That actually shows that God created an incredible design, right?
But that's why I ask. It's because, again, the definition of God then is different, because to me, God is everything. It's omnipotent. So it's not fighting against something else.
Right. But if we consider that what's at play is if there was a war of words and a disagreement with the system God has, which is he operates in kingdoms. It's articulated very well in the New Testament when someone asks Christ, why are you here? He says, my purpose is to spread the good news of the kingdom of God. The good news is I have a remedy here, the gospel. Okay. The kingdom is where I'm from. And even when Pilate, who was a Roman governor who called for Christ to be hung on the cross, he asked Christ, are you a king? And he says, yes, I am, but not of this world. Right? So he came to die on the cross to show us, to create proxy for the Holy Spirit to come into place so that we can experience the Holy Spirit and come back into a transformation and restoration to be brought in through him, right? And so what I believe is that there's a disagreement against God's government. So what's happening now is we're living as the jury, watching this play out. We're experiencing good and evil. We're experiencing dark and light. We're in a world right now, we're experiencing these things and getting the full effect. So ultimately, when we cross the great divide one day and stand before God, we can't say, well, you didn't give us a chance to play this out. We're having full chance to be able to experience what it's like to create our own governments, our own ideas of what we think we should do. So that it's like letting a kid go and ride a bicycle. Okay, go ride the bike, learn, have some mistakes, play it. So that way I'm not riding for you. I'm allowing you to do that. And I'm teaching you together and we're co-creating. But you don't have to learn from me if you don't want to. That's the free will. Yeah. So ultimately we've tried all our systems, man. We've tried humanism, deism, Gnosticism, pantheism. We've tried communism, socialism. We've tried all the isms that should have been wasms, right? And the best that we have is democracy. And even that is built off distrust. It's built off, if I can lie to the people and be popular. Remember we talked about popular over truth?
Yeah. But
if I can be popular, here's the thing. If I can be popular, then I'll get voted in. But that doesn't mean that I no longer have to be held to truth, that I can just lie after that, which is what happens to politicians all the time. Yeah. That's our best system, bro. So what it shows is that no matter how many empires we try to create ourselves, ultimately God, in whether we choose to be with him or not, which is, we always choose, man. You get free will to choose to be with God in love, right? If God is not of love, what's the opposite of love? It's hell. He's not sending you to hell. It's just by default, that's what happens through sin, right? Through violation of purpose. Now, when we stand before God, we can say, I know what it's like to be in these other systems that aren't of yours. So we wouldn't need to disagree because now we understand his wisdom and we have judgment, we have free will. We have reasoning, we have consciousness, we have all these things. So that's why the lie is that if I'm just a good enough person, then I can save my soul. No, I can't. You can't save your soul just because you're a good enough person. I think it's a great virtue, but ultimately connecting with the creator that understands you, that designed you through beautiful design. Wouldn't you go to that person that designed you to find out how can I best function?
Yeah. But then connecting with the creator, to me, it's speaking with plants, hugging a tree. So it can mean different thing for different people. But anyway, I feel
this is good. No, this is a good point. This is a good point, because I wouldn't argue personally with that. There's like scriptures that would probably say otherwise. I personally, through my own experience, wouldn't say, no, that's not true. You could never, because I know people that have had experiences that have found Christ in that and gone, hey, I found God, through this experience. I believe because God is in relationship with us, he comes to us in so many different personable types of ways. Like he came to me first through revelations, through realizing certain things and lining up logical consistencies and going, wow, this is actually insane. And then I started meeting people that would talk to me about him. And then I would start to see prayers answered and miracles unfold before my eyes. So that's how he communicated with me. With somebody else, it may be through prophecies being revealed. For somebody else, it may be through a healing process.
I love the philosophy of Tantra, and that's in everything all the time.
Yeah, well, this is there's layers to so many different belief systems. So everyone's wearing different lenses. And that's what I want to respect, is the fact that the lenses that we put on very much so determines what we worship and what we see. Like your worship comes from where obviously you center your mind on, but it also can come through our consciousness and our reasoning. Now, I know some people that would be like, I'm consciousness and I'm being conscientious, but they don't reason, right? So they don't sit, they don't challenge. That was me before I actually really had my commitment in my relationship with Christ, not religion with Christ, relationship with God, right? What I did was I would just take it on and be like, it was a really great thing. It's a great thing to have that. But then when I started going, wait a minute, if I'm going to believe this to be true, I'm going to battle this thing out. I'm going to test it. I'm going to study every system I can that I can get my hands on. I'm going to battle this out, because if iron is truly true and it's hard iron, it must be tempered and tested to test the quality of it. And that's called reasoning. Now you can have reason and go, well, I've got a strong enough reason to do this. That was Hitler. He had a reason to want to kill millions of Jews. And because he felt like it, he did it. Some people make decisions just because they feel like it. He wanted to kill millions of Jews. He felt like it. Was that the right thing to do? No, because he didn't use proper reasoning, proper conscientiousness, consciousness to understand it. And so his judgment was that he thought that he was doing the right thing, and it was pure evil. So I'm not saying that's what everybody's doing, but I'm wanting anyone that's listening to really think about this.
For me, what's important is the reasoning, and it's the experience also. We've been talking for 54 minutes. I feel like it's been 10 minutes.
You keep going, bro. We got 2 hours. Let's go.
We'll stop soon. But there's a question I'd love to ask you, because for me, and that could be seen as playing God a bit, but that's from experience, the moments where I felt how it would feel to be in pure consciousness, would be through plant medicine, something like ayahuasca. Have you tried, or is it something you're interested in?
I've done magic mushrooms. I haven't done ayahuasca. Within my soul, because I had to ask myself, when I've been offered it a lot, right? A lot, in a lot of different groups. Hey,
we're in Bali.
Well, yeah, we're in Bali, so it happens a lot. We're on the island of 300 million gods, and we have all sorts of things happening around us. Used to live in Ubud. I was also in Venice in California, where a lot of that goes down too. So this is normal to me For me, I had to ask myself, am I choosing not to do it from fear, thinking that I don't want to lose control? Or is it because I feel within my soul, I feel very grounded and very in my growth with what I'm already believing and spiritually experiencing? And that's what it came to be for me. Was I didn't jump into it and go that route, because I genuinely feel so on fire and so alive, more than I ever have, that I don't feel like I need to search, or I want to search for any of those other things. I'm open to talking about it. I'm open to exploring it. I don't judge it. I just personally, in my own relationship with that offering, I'm like, my soul is just so on fire for where I'm at. And I'm, like I said, when I stopped needing to try and understand all the concepts of God, and I actually know him to be a living being, bro, the massive sense of peace that washed over me, and the amazing growth I've experienced in that, you can't even put words to it.
It makes me think of a Hawaiian saying of wisdom, which is effectiveness is the measure of truth. So for me, if it works really well for you, but also for your service and spreading love in the world, and it's the same with
Thank
everyone.
you, man. I appreciate that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, dude, this is, I know it's probably not the normal type of interview you had. No. You could ask me like a lot of different questions around how to overcome procrastination and how to make, money and all this other stuff, bro. But like, dude, that stuff is like, when you come into that deep spiritual connection with God and you co-create, that stuff genuinely, without any righteousness, I'm just saying this because I genuinely feel this, is that it becomes like preschool work. Like it becomes easy, man, because you realize how much you've gotten out of your own way, humbled yourself to God who's higher and greater than all, and you're co-creating there. And like learning, okay, well then if I'm there, like how also do I sit in this and work with, be in this love and this co-creation with others too, bro? It's an awesome standard.
So that's the ultimate hack, actually, even more than tips on removing procrastination,
spiritual
changing
hacks,
the money mindset.
Well, I think
we can have another show on this.
Yeah. This one was the spiritual perception shift, challenging your spiritual beliefs. I think it's, honestly, bro, a lot of people that are listening right now are going to get to later on in their life and then they go, oh, this was the thing that Joel was talking about. It may not drop for you now. The penny may not be there. But I could spend a lot of time speaking to an older based audience that kind of is in that stage of their life. But I want to challenge the millennials and those that are younger, like our age group, to start like considering these things now, Yeah, it's an awesome, part of your journey as a human being, man, on this planet. It's pretty cool stuff.
Thanks, Joel. We're going to wrap it up, but I'd love to know what's next for you and if you want to share a little bit, your projects.
Yeah, so we're going to continue putting episodes on the unknown God. So if this conversation resonated, or maybe it just triggered the hell out of you and you're like, wait a minute, I need to know more. This doesn't, I want to add this up now. And Go to the Unknown God on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. Check it out. We had Matthew McConaughey on there. He was talking about God, how he sees God and what he's come to learn about it. We had Lecrae, who's a multi-Grammy award-winning artist. He's one of the top Christian hip-hop artists. We're going to have people that are that's supportive of LGBTQ. We're going to have people that are transsexual. We're going to have people in there that are Satanists. We're going to have people that are atheists as well. We're getting a mixed bag of all sorts of people in there and having really like tough conversations, but with love, to really like be in a place of like, let's talk about this. Let's open this up, like human to human, heart to heart, no matter what your journey is.
We need these conversations in a time where people are a lot in echo chambers of their own beliefs.
Yes,
that's very exciting.
You're right. Yeah. And obviously we got addicted to success. If you really want to come to that space of cool, Joel, like, I want to learn to build the business and all the other aspects. Cool, you can go there too. So Addicted, the number 2, success. Hit me up on I am Joel Brown. That's my Instagram. So at I am Joel Brown. I have my influential coach program. I teach both sides of the coin for coaching. So I teach you how to learn the principles, the frameworks, the techniques, the tools to create transformation in others. So all the overcoming procrastination, reprogramming the unconscious mind, vision casting, alignment with your values, relationship, shadow work, inner child work, all those things that we've been working with for like the last decade. I teach all that. I teach you how to do that in its purity, more practical than anything else there. So you can apply it and teach it yourself and get paid to actually do this. Then you learn the other side of the coin, which is the business of coaching. So you don't have to fake it to make it. You actually build certainty and then you move into influence because you're authentically in alignment and you know how to build the business systems of a coaching business to build it up to a, 6-figure, 7-figure plus coaching business. You learn branding, marketing, sales, messaging, copywriting, how to scale, how to create courses, how to create your own frameworks, how to get it out there. That's what it's about. So that's Influential Coach. You can see it in my bio. You can DM me, just hit me up and tell me that you heard of me on Alex's podcast, The Light Leaders. And yeah, just I'm happy that you listen. If you've come this far on the episode, listen to it. If I didn't scare you away. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate you. Thanks a million, bro.
Thank you so much, Joel. That'll be in the show notes too. And I want to acknowledge you, well, first for all the work you've been doing super consistently for so much time to get people in their power, and also now realigning your mission to spread more love. And it's beautiful.
I hope if there's anything that anyone took away today, be courageous in sharing truth, right? Like, don't be scared. Don't be scared for people to resist you or walk away if they don't agree with what you say. You know, I spent almost 5-6 years straight pumping out stuff that was popular. They got millions. I got tens of millions of views on videos, hundreds of millions of views on websites, documentary films, all that stuff. Bro, people can like me all day and love me all day. That doesn't change too much. But when you share something that's truth in your courage, and like most walk away, but some stay and some start also embracing it, bro, that's how we change the planet. You asked me before, how do we do it? But that's how we change the planet. But it's got to come from love.
Got to be real.
Exactly, man. That's how you be the light, bro. Awesome.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you,
Appreciate
everyone.
you, bro.
Thank you for taking some of your precious time to listen to this podcast. If you stayed until the end, I assume it was insightful. If you like this podcast, please share with friends. Remember that if you tag us in your Instagram story at the Light Leaders Podcast, we will repost. Tell us what you've learned. You can also leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Now, if you think I can help you grow your soul mission business, you can register for a free 15-minute coaching call with me. Go to www.thelightleaders.org/free call. Thank you again, and let's co-create the conscious new earth together.